Good morning, everyone. It's 10:01 a.m. and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors for Friday, February 28th, 2025. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Thank you to everyone joining us today in person and through our audio option. Today we have definitely one oath of office, then maybe two. And I'll turn it over to our secretary to complete the oath of office. Madam Secretary, please proceed.
Thank you. We're going to start with Greg Hardiman, since we do not see Danny Stoddard in the room. So, Mr. Hardiman, why don't you join me here at the front of the room? Instead of doing the repeat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the card so you can read it. Okay, instead of the repeat after me. And I was going to try not to do the scout oath instead.
I, Greg Hardiman, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this oath, obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Hey, welcome. Officially, Director Hardiman. You want to say a few words before?
Sure.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. This is a huge honor for me. I'm a native of San Francisco, grew up here. The bridge is the most iconic bridge in the world. I look forward to keeping the Golden Gate Bridge and all its entities flourishing and find ways to improve anything that we can. I look forward to working with all you directors and the connections made from up the North Coast. This is very exciting for me, and thank you very much. I look forward to working with you.
And while we're doing that, it looks like Supervisor Stoddard has joined us. Why don't you come and join me at the front of the room? I have a card for you to read from versus the repeat after me.
Thank you. I like this one better. Thank you.
Right.
I, Danny Sauter, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you. And welcome, Director Stoddard.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to join you this morning and to join this board. I'm the District 3 Supervisor in San Francisco. It means I have the great honor of representing the northeast corner of our city, from Union Square to Chinatown, Nob Hill, Rushton Hill, Fisherman's Wharf, some incredible neighborhoods. And, you know, I grew up in the Midwest and have been in San Francisco about 12 years now. And like all of you, this is a bridge that, you know, whether you grew up here in California or around the world, it's a bridge that always beckons to you, and something that I look forward to protecting and working with all of you to get to know all of you on this important work ahead. So pleasure to be here and look forward to all the work ahead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining our board. New directors. Now, getting back to our agenda, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to start with Director Conroy. Present. Dorsey. Stafford and Guardio.
Present.
Garbarina. Present. Judice.
Here.
Hardiman.
Here.
Hernandez. Here. Maston.
Here.
Moulton Peters is absent. Farr is absent. Rodoni.
Here.
Sauter.
Here.
Snyder.
Here.
Fear. Here. Second Vice President Rapid is absent. First Vice President Hill.
Here.
And President Cochran.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. As a reminder, please be sure to turn on your mic when you're open up for discussion, so everyone can hear. Please raise your hand, and the secretary I will call on you accordingly. If you miss your raised hand, please speak up. Following any discussion, we will take the appropriate vote. Please follow us along by referring to the page number located at the bottom right-hand corner of your packet. Director Snyder, would you please lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please continue with the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 4, which is public comment for any and all items on today's agenda. If you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, please speak to it now. We're going to start with those attending our meeting in person before we move on to the public line, the phone line with Justine. I have 2 speaker cards here today. So we're going to start with Alita Dupree. Would you please join us at the end of the table there? And then turn on your microphone. The light will be green.
Thank you. Good morning, President Cochran and members. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her with Team Polls. It's good to be back in here. I get to sit at the head of the table with y'all. First of all, first order of business. I did get to reach out to staff, let you know that I met some really good people at the Transbay Terminal, helped me get my bus. So I feel that when we have good people, we want to call that. So thank you for that. I was able to make it to the meeting on time and safely. Where's my clock here?
In front of you, the green light.
Okay. Looks like we're getting a lot of new things done. Renewable fuel on the buses. I see a sign for that. And I got some word about some planning for more frequent bus service. This is something I can use within San Francisco. I just always have to remember to tap on, tap off. And just to be back at the bridge again. I'm not originally from here. I'm from New York City. We have the 4,260 foot long main span of the Verrazano Bridge. But you can't walk across the Verrazano Bridge. I can walk across this Golden Gate Bridge and enjoy it much more easily. There's just scenery around it, mountain. Don't get me wrong. You know, I love New York. I'm gonna go there, ride the subway. But it's good to be back over here. And I want to see the progress with our tolling work. We have been doing the all electronic tolling for a number of years and it works. But someday I think we have to come to a day when we will take the toll plaza down and eliminate the kind of, don't know what I call obstructions. Obstruction slows things down. And part of going to all electronic tolling is to clear the road so our traffic can move through more clearly. And we can preserve that really nice clock. Want to make sure that we do something with that so people can enjoy it. And I really appreciate your all dedication. I read that one of you, not sure who, actually commutes here by plane. I'm going to have to super commute here by plane, fly up here from Las Vegas, come here to one of your meetings and fly home. That's amazing. I'm afraid of flying. I've been on planes. I'm a veteran of Desert Storm. I've been on planes going all over the place. So anyway, getting used to this here. But thank you so much for your hospitality and the great people who helped me to get here on your services. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Alita. The next person is Dave Brody.
Good morning. My name is Dave Brody. I'm the San Francisco Policy Co-Chair for Al Gore's Climate Reality Project. Welcoming new board members, Danny Stouter and Greg Hardiman. I want to recap the district's climate initiatives. In 2019, this board passed a climate emergency resolution by unanimous vote. In 2024, the board approved a first-of-a-kind strategic plan initiative that includes, quote, a long-term energy plan with implementation timeline goals for green transportation options for bridge, bus, and ferry operations. Concurrent to these climate actions, the district began to lay out plans for diesel ferries. While stating my opposition to the district's current ferry plans at past meetings, I've also listened to your feedback. What I've heard boils down to two things. One, speed. The claim that large capacity electric ferries aren't fast enough to meet the needs of commuters, especially on the Larkspur to San Francisco route. But the reality is that because of speed limits across the bay, electric ferries of 30 knots, the type used in many parts of the world today, will take just 7 minutes longer from Larkspur to San Francisco than your 35-knot catamarans. And I know you've never polled your commuters to see how they'd feel about an extra 7 minutes if they were riding an emissions-free electric ferry. The second issue is charging. You need a new electrical infrastructure at your docks to charge the electric ferries, and PG&E is notoriously hard to work with on such upgrades. And your supposition is that you need to be able to fully recharge a ferry in the short window of a ferry's turnaround time at the dock. Granted, the infrastructure you need will require an investment of time, effort, and money, but the recent breakthroughs in battery technology are eliminating the issues of charging turnaround time. Electric ferries up in Washington State, Denmark, and Norway are making 3-hour trips on one charge. You don't need to recharge every time you dock. You can also top off the charge in the time at the dock. I am not an electric ferry expert, but I do know that if you do not set a goal to transition to electric ferries, you will never take the necessary steps to achieve that transition. These are not insurmountable challenges. Therefore, I will be leading the Bay Area Climate Reality Project to petition this board to make a commitment to future electric ferries. We will be recruiting dozens of other climate groups in the Bay Area to join our petition, and we plan to present that petition to you and to the public at a very propitious time. In the next week or so, you'll see a media announcement that former Vice President Al Gore will be the keynote speaker at San Francisco Climate Week in mid-April. I cannot speak for Mr. Gore about this petition, but I do know that he fully supports electrification of public transportation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodey. That concludes the speakers in the room. Do we have any other speakers that are back there that may want to speak today or address this board? Okay, that was an opportunity to try and capture any others. Justine, I'm going to turn it over to you on the public line to see if there's any speakers in the public line.
Thank you so much. I have no speakers at this time, but I would like to poll because I believe a few people have joined my call, if that's okay.
That's okay, go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. If you've joined this morning and you'd like to speak at the board meeting, please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know. Again, if you'd like to address the board this morning, please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know. Madam Secretary, I'm not hearing anybody this morning. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. This concludes public comment for our items on today's agenda. We're going to move on to item number 5 to approve the consent agenda. Before we take our vote, are there any questions from board members on the consent agenda? If not, I have a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Let the record show that there's no opposition and the motion passes. Moving on to item number 6A, which is a report of our general manager. Dennis, would you please proceed?
Thank you, President Cochran, members of the board, members of the public. My written report is before you. I would like to highlight a couple items. The most important item is what we're all about, which is travel in the Golden Gate Corridor. If you want to get from San Francisco to Marina Sonoma, it's via our bridge, our bus, or our boat. The sidewalks are free. Travel in the corridor by all 3 modes is still well below pre-pandemic levels. That having been said, travel is continuing to trend upward at a slow, steady pace. Last month in January, southbound bridge traffic was 5% above January of 2024. Bus ridership was 8% above January 2024, and ferry ridership was 28% above January 2024. So the district continues to add back bus and ferry service incrementally as we see a return of our customers traveling in the Golden Gate corridor. In January, commute bridge traffic, and that's 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., was 28% below 2019 commute bridge traffic. This 28% less bridge traffic corresponds to about 100,000 vehicles crossing the bridge during the morning commute in January compared to January before the pandemic. Since tolls are our largest source of revenue, you can imagine that has significant challenges for us. And so for the new board members, I want to welcome you to an organization that is incredibly well run because of this board, but has many challenges that it must confront on a fiscal nature. That having been said, our current budget will be balanced because we have one-time federal COVID relief money due to Senate Bill 125, which was authored by Senator Wiener. Senate Bill 125 provided transit funding, and MTC allocated a multi-year award of $41 million to the Bridge District. And with that money, we'll have a balanced budget this year, but recognizing we are spending one-time COVID relief money. We have significantly reduced costs. We provide much less service today than we did before the pandemic. We employ about 1/3 fewer bus operators today compared to before the pandemic without any layoffs. We can't print money, we can't borrow money for transit operations, so our finances are brutally simple. It does keep us honest. But we do have service out there that meet customer demand. There's just fewer people commuting into downtown San Francisco. And I cannot emphasize enough that our financial fate is tied to the success of downtown San Francisco. So this organization is completely invested in the success of downtown San Francisco in terms of the office space being fully leased out, conventioners and visitors and tourists from all over the world coming to San Francisco because those drive travel in our corridor. The Senate Bill 125 money we received from MTC won't last forever. Fortunately, a newly elected state senator, Jesse Aragon from the Berkeley area, is seeking funding via a budget stopgap measure in the current fiscal year, or next fiscal year. He's seeking this current budget cycle. So our lobbyists in Sacramento are reaching out to our delegation to see if they'll sign on to that. Because if that gives us a couple more years of a longer glide path, that may be enough time for downtown San Francisco to rebound and bounce back. Because we're primarily self-funded, that would be great. Separate from that, MTC is looking at doing a regional transportation measure. Senator Wiener has a spot bill in for that. MTC did some recent polling, and it was kind of a good news, bad news polling result. The good news is people said they might consider it. The bad news is not enough people. But there's a lot of efforts focused on transit coming back. The success of downtown San Francisco is tied to transit, especially BART and Muni. We're a much, much smaller entity and much lesser effect. But I just want to make sure that you're all cognizant of that, and I'll continue to keep you appraised of those efforts. But we're grateful for Senator Jesse Aragon and Senator Scott Wiener for their efforts in Sacramento to look at helping transit. One other item I want to mention before we get to the fun part of my report is that there has been a flurry of recent executive orders and directives. I talked a little bit about that last month. It is quite clouded and there's a tremendous uncertainty. But our capital program, that is how we buy buses, how we buy ferries, is primarily funded with federal funds. We use toll funds to match it. And so typically those are 80% federally funded. On the bridge, our daily operations, maintenance, security is completely toll funded, but our capital projects are oftentimes grant funded, whether it's a suicide barrier, a movable median barrier, or our final seismic retrofit phase. On the Federal Transit Administration front, which is for our bus and ferry projects, formula funds are still flowing. There's certain federal formulas that flow out to regions, and those are not currently being held up. At this juncture, though, discretionary grants are going through a separate, different process with extra steps. They go through the Chief Counsel's office at DOT in Washington, D.C. They go through review there before they are forwarded to the Secretary for consideration. So there's a lot of uncertainty about that. We also have, not insignificantly, a $400 million discretionary grant from the Federal Highway Administration for the final seismic retrofit of the bridge. For perspective, that represents about 2.5 years worth of tolls. If we collected tolls for 2.5 years and spent them on nothing, that's how much money that grant represents without painting the bridge, operating a bus, or operating a ferry. That grant, we have a signed grant agreement but we have not obligated the money yet and done our first drawdown. So I'll keep you posted on that. That discretionary grant is from a bridge program. So if they were to look at rescinding programs, then I suspect that program would be safe. The early executive orders talked about rescinding programs. The House leadership on the Republican side has talked about rescinding portions of the Inflation Reduction Act. This is a bipartisan infrastructure law grant, so that offers some solace. However, 2 days ago, the administration issued a new executive order that talked about line-by-line veto, if you wish, for any grant or contract. Setting aside whether or not that's legal will be decided by others, but it is something that is of concern for a $400 million grant. So I just wanted to make sure that you're all aware that there's a lot of uncertainty and chaos in the federal landscape. Like all public agencies all across the country, we look to our federal partners for assistance. For us, the assistance is $400 million for the seismic retrofit, which is an awarded grant, and it is also the ongoing monies we get to replace buses and ferries. So I'll keep you appraised of that. Now I can get to the fun part of the meeting, which is the Employee of the Month. After all the somber news, we have a fabulous workforce here, and every month we have the pleasure of celebrating one of our employees. And the management team and I have absolutely nothing to do with deciding who gets it. We have a committee made up of employees that selects their colleagues to be the Employee of the Month. And I would now ask Kelly Hopper to escort Joe Leong to the front of the room. He's a senior systems manager. So while he's currently a senior systems information manager, he initially started in 2006 as a part-time intern. 2 years later, he became a full-time employee. He's been promoted countless times, and his colleagues just say he's a joy to work with. He's vital to our cybersecurity efforts, and most significantly, recently, he helped the marketing department roll out a new intranet, and they cannot say enough kind words about you, Joe. So congratulations.
First of all, I want to thank you, my peers, for this award. It's a great honor to have that, as I've gotten before, but I think it's more my team that really deserves this as well. They're taking care of the help desk calls, the tickets, as well as keeping the systems up and running, including the network itself, in order to, like the PA and all this technology we have right now, Brennan. So we appreciate, all the respect that the peers give to us, as well as, all the day-to-day work, as there's many administrative staff here at the district that keep the district running. So the next thing I hope is that the next Employee of the Month is actually the Employee of the Month committee, because they keep the program running and keep all of us motivated.
Good. Are there any questions related to the general manager's report? Yes, Sabrina?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. And thank you, Dennis, for your report. It's always very comprehensive. We appreciate it very much. There was one item, though, that was in your written report that you addressed with your comments. And I want to make sure that I go on the record with just a few things to say. And that was the report on the Golden Gate Bridge electrical system repairs. For those of you who have read the item, there was an issue with the infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure here on the bridge, and it compromised or had the potential to compromise in a huge way some of our very important systems, including potentially our electronic tolling collections, certainly the security systems, and it also had the potential to injure our workers who work on that electrical infrastructure and other folks who work on the bridge. So gladly, everyone was fine. Gladly, a fix has been made, and Dennis has and others have put together a plan to fully restore the system so that we don't have worries in the future. We do have a bridge that is very old, and lots of the equipment on the bridge is original. Lots of the equipment that's on the bridge functioning now is not being made anymore. It's out of production. So we have to be nimble and figure out ways to find solutions to problems when we have equipment failures. This is one of them. But I guess I just wanted to make sure that that we were aware of this issue. I have concerns not just from the perspective of, you know, the dangers to the public, to our infrastructure, but also to the employees that work day in and day out at the bridge. We need to make sure that they are safe. And I've spoken to Dennis. Thank you very much for your time earlier this week. But I want to make sure that, and I will be staying in touch with you to make sure that, you know, that you are thinking, and we have top of mind, what kinds of things we need to do to avoid problems in the future. You know, what kinds of inspections are taking place, if there's additional funding required to bring on consultants to do inspections, if there's any additional funding that needs to come online to pay for maintenance software. And Dennis, we did talk about all of that, but I just want to make sure that it's in the record. It's on my mind. I think it should be on all of our minds. And I'll continue to follow up with you, Dennis, and appreciate all of your efforts to, with all due and necessary speed, move forward with those plans to troubleshoot the issue, figure out what was behind the failures, and to plan for avoiding this type of situation in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
If you
Sabrina.
want, I can offer
Yes.
a couple comments. So for the, in my written report, I talked about an issue that happened on Saturday of Super Bowl weekend at 5 a.m. Just for the newer board members, we have 27 collective bargaining agreements, including with IBEW Local 6. We're very proud to have very talented staff here. We have an electrician on staff 24/7 at the bridge. We have a lot of systems in place, but we had a breaker trip on a mid-voltage cross bridge feeder at 5 a.m. We had staff here. We mobilized resources internally and externally. We got outside contractors come in to assist because of the volume of the work. It took a while to ascertain what the issue was, but what we did immediately was we have a backup toll room. None of your systems were, it was business as usual. We have backup systems in place, so the backup toll collection equipment room lost power temporarily, but it has a UPS, an uninterrupted power supply, and we were able to put a temporary generator in place until that UPS ran out. So even the backup room never lost electricity. We're very cognizant that tolls are our largest funding source, so we're very focused on that, but we're focused on all facets of what we do. We're tasked with protecting the bridge for future generations and having our workforce safe. It turned out that what initially triggered this was a transformer. Sometimes in your neighborhood, you hear a pop and the power goes out. That's a transformer. Our transformers are not located adjacent to the public. They're all accessible by ladders and on platforms, but they're in areas that they're not adjacent to the public. So if a transformer goes, it's not right next to somebody. The transformer that initially triggered this was not a catastrophic failure, but it's a transformer where we got our money's worth because it was original. Full disclosure. So transformers, you know, in the commercial world can last 20 to 30 years, but you talk to some electricians, they'll say they last forever. And so we did have an issue. We had some subsequent issues to that. So we got temporary power in, so all of our systems are in place. We'll do a short-term fix that'll also report at the future GM report in terms of a short-term fix where we will bring in some temporary air insulated switches to replace some older equipment, so we don't have to worry about another thing failing. And then we'll come back with a major project that we'll advertise under the public contract code for competitive low bid to replace a 1.5 mile long cross bridge mid voltage feeder because the additional line is about 30 years old. It uses a technology in covering that's no longer current. It's a cross-linked polyethylene 3-conductor cable. We will then replace the temporary switches we put in with permanent ones. The reason why we're going to put in temporary switches is the permanent switches and transformers have a 25 to 40 week lead time. With the coming out of the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, there's a long lead time on electrical components. And so we have temporary pieces that we'll get in the next couple of weeks. We'll have those installed, and I will continue to keep you abreast of this. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Are there any other questions of If not, Dennis, thank you for your report.
Actually, I have a question.
Another item that I don't think was touched on is the update on the effort to improve the financial condition of the Golden Gate Transit Amalgamated Retirement Plan. Now, I see here on page 44 that the plan's funded ratio has actually decreased from 48% January 1st to 47.2% 2024. When the actuary for the union came and spoke, there was consensus that the plan needed to be funded. And the fact that it's gone down in a year is very concerning to me. I would like to see, a commitment from the district to fund the plan. The actuary, when he spoke, said that even if every single benefit was taken away from the union, it would increase the funding by 1%. So at that time, I called for full funding of this pension by this district. These are our employees, this is our pension, and we cannot allow the situation to continue. And I know that we have some people working on it, like Chris Schneider and others and the ATU, but I really want to make a call again for full funding of this pension and a commitment by this board and the district to fund it.
Thank you, Director Thayer. For the newer board members, district employees participate in one of 4 different pension plans based on their collective bargaining agreement. Our large group of employees are covered by CalPERS. We also have employees covered by what's known as the MEBA plan, the Marine Engineers Beneficial Association. That's our ferry boat captains. We also have an Inland Boatmen's Union plan that covers some of our other ferry employees, such as deckhands and terminal assistants. And then we have what's known as GG-TARP, the Golden Gate Transit Amalgamated Retirement Plan. The GG-TARP covers our bus operators, and that was the pension plan that Director Thayer is referring to. The IBU pension plan was in the red zone a couple years ago. They adopted a Taft-Hartley style rehabilitation plan, and last fall they became in the green zone. So it's in a great funding status. The MEBA plan is in great funded status, and CalPERS, you can read about in the paper, it's decent funded status. The GG-TARP plan, though, has lots of challenges. The way the GG-TARP plan is structured is there's a separate pension board with 3 members appointed by the union and 3 appointed by the district, and they govern the plan. They set the benefits, and they do everything except the contributions. Contributions are negotiated at the table. We're currently in negotiations with the ATU that represents our bus operators, and one of our goals this cycle is to fix the pension. Fixing the pension will involve a lot more money from this organization. It also should involve, hopefully, changes in governance, and it should hopefully involve some minor changes in benefits so it's similar to other pension plans. Every other pension plan, especially when it's in financial challenges, has a strict correlation to the money received on behalf of a pension, an employee, and their ultimate payout. So if you put more money in the pension, if you work more years, you get a bigger pension. If you're younger when you retire, you get a reduction in your monthly payment. This plan has historically not followed the norms of other pension plans. So this plan went for decades where you did not have to make any contributions for a year. You could be out on leave for a year and you get a year of pension credit. This plan, up until recently, did not reduce your pension payment monthly if you had a spouse. Other pension plans, when you retire, if you're a single person, you get a certain amount. If you're married and you want your spouse to get your pension when you die, particularly if they're much younger than you, you have a reduction in your pension payment based on their age. That was done last year, 2 years after it was negotiated at the table. This pension plan still does not discount early pension retirements. If you retire as an electrician or an iron worker, you take an early, or an elevator mechanic, and you take an early retirement, you don't go to the full age, your monthly payment's smaller. That's how fiscally sound pensions are managed and operated. This pension, while it's done many changes, has not made that last change yet. But our goal is to address this in bargaining. We are in bargaining. We've had 3 meetings thus far, and it will come back to this board at the appropriate juncture as part of our collective bargaining agreement, because clearly we'll have to put more money in this pension. And I look forward to working with the board and working with the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1575, their leadership and their international vice president, as we come up with ways to solve that pension. We are exploring a variety of different options. to address the challenges of the pension. The union is aware of all the options that we're currently exploring. Some would involve changes to the existing pension. Some might involve transitioning to another pension for some people. Those would all be subject to bargaining, and a lot of work will be done in the coming months. But it's our goal to fix this pension. All of our employees, after a long career, should retire with a healthy pension. And to do that takes two things. One is a well-managed plan, which historically this plan has not been. Historically, this plan had an attorney whose sole pension experience was this plan. They worked for the Silicon Edge Law Group. They had no colleagues back at the office to talk to consult with. They had this one pension client. The prior plan administrator's qualifications to be the plan administrator for this pension plan was her dad had been a bus driver for Golden Gate. So the pension had a long history. All of that is behind it. This time during negotiations, our goal is to fix it. And so that will take a lot of money from this organization, but staff will not recommend money to this pension if the pension is giving away money, because we have a duty to our ratepayers. The people that pay tolls have an expectation that we manage the money well. This organization always has. And so it's important that we maintain that reputation with our customers. So when we do have toll increases, that our customers understand, they do not object. But with that, I'm available to answer any questions the board may have.
In addition to that, our advisory committee on labor will handle most of this operation. And at some point in the future, they'll bring it back to this board. Are there any other questions for Dennis?
Yeah, I just wanted a quick, if I may, I don't want to go into the whole history of everything, but appreciate Director Tiers raising this issue. I'm on the subcommittee for it, and it's a very complex issue. And I just want to assure everyone in the room and our employees that we've met multiple times as a district. We've come up with a whole slew of scenarios. The good thing is when the district hired the outside consultant, the presentation that was made here was very similar. So when the actuaries came in and the funding status, there was nothing untoward that the pension board's been doing. It is pretty, all the numbers are within 1%. So that gives us confidence that we know what we're working with as far as the numbers go and whatever solution we come up with. And it has to be this year. At some point, we're going to come forward with a full plan. And part of that's in labor and whatnot. But as my roles as the past chair this last year and working with Director Verdoni and Director Maston, it's a pretty complex issue with a lot of things. But we do have, we'll be bringing forward some stuff and appreciate some of the history.
All right.
Thank you. I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited to see what comes forward.
All right. Any other questions? Well, Dennis, thank you for the report. We're going to move on to item number 6B, which is the attorney's report. And I'll turn that over to Kim Knowles, attorney.
Thank you, President Cochran. My written report's before you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. No closed sessions today, so that's good news.
All right. Any questions of the attorney? If not, we'll move on to item number 6C, which is report of our district engineer. As a reminder, the engineer's report can be found in the Building and Operating Committee's meeting packet as agenda item number 5. And John Everly is here to present his report. John, please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, President Cochran, members of the board. Few items I want to highlight for those who were not here yesterday. Status of the suicide deterrent project. We're continuing with the sewing of the last large segment of the net on the northeast side of the main span of the bridge. So that work is progressing, and we also began removal of the last maintenance travelers, which will allow to finish up the net around the tower, the south tower. The Vista Point Trail project, which is a trail that goes from the north end of the bridge down underneath the bridge on the Cosmon Road. Contractors finished the clearing and grubbing, and they're getting ready to do excavation work once the soil has been tested, profiled. The San Rafael Bus Employee Parking Lot, all of the solar panel structure and panels are installed. So the contractor is now working on the electrical components of that. And the South Lido Landside Improvement Project is substantially complete. And punch list items are remaining. It's a very nice looking project. I'm happy to answer any questions on the rest of the report.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions of John? If not, we'll move on. And Holly, I think you need to recuse yourself.
Yes,
for
thank
this
you.
next item. We'll
Yes.
continue with item 8A, the agenda, which is the report from yesterday's Building and Operating Committee. Chair Gavarino, please begin the report. Sure as Holly's out of the room. Please.
Thank you, President Cochran. The Building and Operating Committee recommends approval of item number 8A1 to authorize execution of professional services agreement number 2024B014, bridge inspection services with HDR Engineering Incorporated of Walnut Creek, in the amount of not to exceed $10,982,580 to perform 2 cycles of the Title 23 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 650 mandated bridge inspections at the Golden Gate Bridge, and to establish a 10% contingency for the professional services agreement in the amount of $1,098,258, with the understanding that sufficient funds to finance these actions are available in the fiscal year 2024-2025 Bridge Division operating budget as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Been moved and seconded. Are there any questions related to this item? Thank you. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Let the record show there is no opposition. The motion passes. Chair Gavarino, do you have anything further to report?
No, thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Okay. Is Thomas back there? You can, oh, there you go. Continue with item 8B on the agenda, which is a report from yesterday's Finance and Auditing Committee. Since Chair Rabbit and Vice Chair Potter are not here today, I've asked Director Hernandez, and she graciously agreed to make the presentation to our committee. And Director Hernandez, would you please begin your report?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will do my best.
Oh, thank you.
The Finance Auditing Committee recommends approval of item 8B1 to approve renewal of the district's marine insurance program as detailed in the staff report relative to the district's protection and indemnity coverage, hull and machinery, increased value and war coverage, including Terrorism and Risk Insurance Act coverage, marine general liability coverage, as well as the excess marine general liability insurance program and vessel pollution coverage for a renewal package totaling $963,415, and I so move.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Has been motion made and seconded. Are there any questions related to this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Let the record show there is no opposition and the motion passes. Director Hernandez, please continue with your next item.
Thank you. The committee also recommends approval of item 8B2 to authorize execution of an amendment to contract number 2023-D-075, Grants Management Professional Services, to provide additional on-call professional support services in the amount of $700,000 for a total not to exceed amount of $1.5 million, provided funding is available within the district's annual budget as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions related to this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Let the record show there is no opposition and the motion passes. Director Hernandez, have anything further to report?
Yes, Mr. President. The next item, the committee is also recommending approval of item 8B3, which will authorize the general manager to pursue and execute agreements and related amendments that authorize the district to accept or bind the district to provide funds or in-kind services valued at up to $250,000 per contract, with the understanding that this delegation would apply to transactions including, but not limited to, grant agreements, funding agreements, memorandum of understanding, interagency agreements, and cooperative agreements, as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions related to this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, or is there any opposition? If not, let the record show there's no opposition. Record. Landis, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last item for recommendation is the approval of item 8B4, which will approve renewal of the annual delegation of investment management authority to the auditor controller for fiscal year 25-26 as per Rule 11, Investment Policy, Section E, Delegation of Authority of the Rules of the Board, and as provided for in California Government Code Section 53607, as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Before I ask for the vote, are there any questions related to this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Let the record show there is no opposition to this motion. Director Hernandez, do you have anything further to report?
Mr. President, that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We have no items under item 9, 10, 11, or 12. Item number 13 is communication. Please contact the district secretary's office for copies of any communications that take us to the end of the agenda, and there are no further items to be presented to the board. We have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Moved.
Second, move, second.
No, I wanted, did you
Yes,
take that?
please.
Yeah, and I answered.
Okay.
Yeah, he's on. She's
Okay.
No worries, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Something's going on here, eh? We have a motion to adjourn, and I assume it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, before we adjourn, let's take a moment of silence for Mike Kearns. He's a former director from Sonoma County, county supervisor. We got Paul Manolis, and we got Francis Xavier, FX Conley, a San Francisco native, labor and community leader who served on various San Francisco commissions and boards. Please pause for a minute. Silence for those folks. All right. Time is 10:50.